Welcome to the members and the guests of CMC Ontario and Canada. This is our leadership series on disruptive trends in the time of COVID, and it's hosted by the Ontario Institute. We've tried to create a nice discussion forum where we'll have a speaker who will provide us with some information and then have an interactive question and answer session to be able to share things. I'm Bernie Ulick. I'm a CMC Ontario Institute board member and also a global supply chain and IT management consultant leading digital transformational change in clients. I'll be your host and moderator today. Today's session is going to talk and address the problems of digitizing a business. Do you or your clients, do you have a service-based business using a telephone or lots of paper, or a bricks and mortar store where you're trying to use some digital commerce and take advantage of the fact that nobody can get out of their house, and so you've got to come to them? Do you need to enter the homes, be able to take orders, and to provide alternatives to the traditional ways of people walking into your store? So during this webinar, we're going to learn a little bit about how can you create the demand and grow your business to meet the needs of your customers with these new technologies and the constraints that we've got on deliveries, and also the digital strategies that you can implement during the stage of this panel. So let me introduce our speaker who's going to guide us through the next 40 minutes or so. Riaz CD, he's the president of an organization called CD, and he's a demand generation professional specializing in lead generation, and his team is focused on automating technologies and using the cloud and some other things. And in the prep work that we've done of this, I think he's done a really amazing job of how he's able to pull a bunch of things together and really enable small to mid-sized businesses to be able to help them in a time of where the traditional means just don't work anymore. Without, let me pass it over to Riaz. Maybe just like to give us a quick overview of who you are, what you do, and why this is important, and then at the end of it, we'll go to a Q&A. So
Sure. Thank you so much, Bernie, and thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time out of your day, your very busy day, to join us to go over my webinar, 5 Strategies to Digitize Your Business During the COVID-19 Pandemic. I'm sure at this point, we're now into our 8th week in a lot of cases since March 16th that we've been in an altered state, and it's been a trying time for everyone. And at this point, you probably have a little bit of Zoom fatigue. So I'm hoping that while you're having your lunch today, I can bring the energy, and we can talk about ways that we can digitize your business, or if you're as a consultant, your client's business as well. A little bit about me: I run a digital marketing agency that specializes in B2B technology companies, healthcare, and arts and entertainment. And we really are focused on this idea of being a turnkey employee for the businesses that we work with. This helps to really make businesses more efficient. It minimizes the risk involved with digital marketing. And the engagements that we've had are very personal and personalized and custom. And I think the clients that we work with really appreciate that. And as a result of this pandemic, a lot has changed for our business too. We had, many clients, 65% of our clients actually paused their campaigns due to the initial kind of brunt that we all faced. But what we've decided and what we've determined is that there is a whole other industry that's emerging for us in ways that we can help to digitize businesses in the pandemic for the long term. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and we can look at ways that we can help your business from a digital marketing perspective, as well as digitizing your operations, finance, sales, and other relevant areas of your business. So I'm going to throw up a cliche line here: out of adversity comes opportunity. So, let's face it, we're all going through a lot right now, and our main focus needs to be protecting our business. So this means applying for government programs, it means restructuring our businesses, and unfortunately, in some cases, laying off staff. We're entrepreneurs, we're business owners, we're configured to be creative in these times and evolve. So my goal today is not to be insensitive to any one person or any business situation, because I know that there are some businesses that are completely closed and not operational, all the way to business as usual. So my goal really here is to hopefully trigger some new ways of thinking that will inspire you to take action and to digitize and future-proof your business, because I'm sure in some of the research that you've done, things aren't going back to the way they were. They're not normal. We're going to evolve with the times, and we have to establish our new normal. So I guess the first step really is attending a webinar like this and doing the research for yourself is the first step towards that form of discovery. So we're going to throw up another poll here, and I'll throw this one up. And really, Sandra, go ahead. And yeah, the question here is, how operational is your business? If a prospect approached you today, would you be able to service them? So the first answer is closed, not operational, closed and not operational, but exploring digital options, physically closed, but operational with restrictions. So what I mean by that is you're currently fulfilling orders digitally in some capacity, virtual appointments with shipping, curbside pickup, selling products remotely, or showing users how to set up via a digital platform. So, and then the final answer is fully open and operational. So I'll give you just 30 seconds. I'll have a sip of my tea here, and that'll allow you to assess this for your own company as to where you stand. Okay, we're just approaching the 1 minute mark. So if you want to get your buzzer beater answers in, and Sandra, can you please close the poll and share the results? Great. So, I mean, what we can see here is that there's a diversity, certainly. The majority of us are fully open and operational, which is great to hear. Really, we know it's a challenging time, and many industries are still unable to open. And for the ones that are, you know, we've had to be creative about it. So the goal of our talk today is that if you're in categories A and B, which is closed to a certain extent, we want to get you to C as quickly as possible. So, you know, whether that's doing curbside pickup, some digital type of delivery, virtual appointments. And we want you to think about how to improve your operational efficiency digitally. So if you're already in C, which many of us are, you know, this may be your first time doing a digital kind of a distribution of your product or service, or deployment of your product or service. There may be a better way to do that. And because you might have, as a reaction to the pandemic, said, okay, we need to do something digitally. In the last 8 weeks, you've kind of got your ducks in a row. Is there a better way? And are there ways to do operational efficiency? If you're in the last category, you may also be thinking about ways to, you know, maximize the capacity for your business to be digital. You know, you haven't been impacted yet, and that's great to hear. But you know, there could be impacts in the future. So for businesses that absolutely can't service clients, it is a time to focus on building thought leadership and educating, entertaining, and enlightening clients. You know, for example, a hairdresser who creates videos on how to cut your own hair. So my goal today really is this idea of triggering some ideas of ways that you can, you know, be part of the digital economy in this regard. And I think the most important thing really to remember is life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it, right? So, you know, coming to a webinar like this, doing your research, you know, showing up on a day-to-day basis, you know, I got my blazer on even though I'm in my basement, right? So I think a lot of us are making the effort to really show up on a day-to-day basis, and that's admirable. The issue becomes in how we respond to this disaster, because that will really set us up for success in the years to come. So it is important to digitize your business now. I like to share this slide because there's 3 ways that you can react to the current economic climate. You can freeze, which leads to panic, and it's all fear oriented and woe is me, and you know, I'm paralyzed. The second is the flight, which is let's try this, let's try that, let's keep you know, changing verticals. Maybe we need to pivot, or maybe not, and then kind of going back. Or what I'm recommending is to fight and to position yourselves using a well-rounded strategy to get you to the next level, and to, by March 2023, be in a much better position that you're in now. You know, a lot of the influencers out there, they speak to, you know, this is the opportunity, this is the opportunity. But I mean, the reality is there are a lot of businesses that aren't going to be doing well at the end of this. And I think part of that is a combination of things that we can't control, which is of course unfortunate, but there are the other parts that we can control. So we need to think about what strategy you're going to implement in your business. Oh my goodness, Riaz, you want us to digitize our business now, right in the middle of a crisis? Like, what are you thinking here, right? So don't we have enough to deal with already? So, you know, the real question I get asked a lot is, where do I start? Okay, where do I start? On the previous slide here, you know, there's a variety of different tools, and I'm sure some of them are familiar to you, but really it's an overwhelming prospect for a lot of business owners, especially those that aren't as technically savvy. And I understand that. So where do you start? here's where our team started. First, you can't get to your destination without a plan, right? Self-awareness is key. As I mentioned, we can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. And the best way to respond is to actually have a plan. What we did was we looked at the functional areas of our business. For us, that is, looking at the big picture, laying out the different functional areas of our business. First, of course, is reacting to the immediate problems that we're facing. For us, that meant recognizing that 65% of our clients had paused in some capacity and developing a method to go out and identify low impact verticals that need our services. Of course, I recognize that not every industry can sell and can operate at all, and I understand that. So this may be a good time for you to focus on some other areas, some other functional areas of your business, so that when you can sell again, you hit the ground running. So what we did is, we are a relatively small company, but we still treat it like a large corporation in the sense that we've divided our tasks amongst these different functional areas. And we looked at what are the things that we can do right now, and what are some of the areas that we've been putting off for the last 2 years that because we're not able to do certain functions in our business, we can now focus on. An example of that is our reporting. We pride ourselves on the reporting that we give to our clients on our digital marketing campaigns. But we've been looking for a reporting tool that we could centralize all of the different platforms into one tool. So now we've spent this time, the last few weeks, doing the research, investing, because the day-to-day isn't as crazy as normal. Another thing that we're doing is, there are a lot of government programs. We've done the wage subsidy stuff in Canada here. We're leveraging the CEBA, so the emergency business account, the $40,000 loan, interest-free loans. So we're exhausting whatever avenues that we have available to us. But at the same time, there are some benefits that are being offered that we've decided to pass on. So for example, the corporate taxes deadline has been extended to the end of August. Well, our thinking is if things are moving again by the end of August and September, the last thing we want to be doing is our taxes, right? So we're doing our taxes now so that when the time comes, we're hitting the ground running and we're selling a lot more at that point. So think about the functional areas of your business. What are some things that you can do now? We're doing training, for example, a lot of training right now as we're seeing, and you're doing training by attending a webinar like this. So thank you for participating. And then what we did is we boiled down these activities into 4 key buckets. So I wanted this to be digestible to the team. I wanted transparency amongst the team. So we boiled it down into morale, go-to-market strategy, training, and performance. The most important one for our team is morale. Our company philosophy is, family first, physical and mental health are also first as well. So, we do regular Zoom calls. Sometimes we'll have a Zoom in the background where we're actually not doing a formal engagement like this, but, we just, all 4 of us, 5 of us have, our Zoom on, and we're, able to turn around and have a chat with each other. Social, a consequence of physical distancing is sometimes social isolation. So I think it's important that to address those types of things. Getting music going. I'm on my standing desk right now. I'm not sure if you can notice that, but I'm on my standing desk. So think about morale, because you can't do the other 3 or any other functional area of your business without a good morale. Go-to-market strategy. We've developed strategies around our sales and marketing, including trying to do as many webinars as we can, such as this, training, getting our certifications that we haven't, the ones that we haven't done. And then of course, performance, which is optimizing performance for our business. So coming back to this enormous slide of confusing tools, the question to ask yourself is, what is my goal? And I hope through the last few slides, you took the message away that it's really just about answering that one goal. What is that one goal that you have for your business? Because these tools are just the answer to the goal. They're not actually the solution themselves. They're the answer to the goal. So what is your digitization goals? So in the regular correspondence that we've had with clients, these are some of the ones that have emerged. I want to digitize my sales and marketing. I want to digitize and improve internal communication. I want to digitize my finance systems. I want to digitize my training and learning management. I want to digitize operations. For your business, it may be some of these or none of these. It may be something completely different. But I think it's important that we're just touching on these kind of main ones because they're somewhat universal. And at the same time, if you have other goals, I'm happy to answer your questions at the end, as mentioned by Sandra and Bernie, or you can reach out to me after the webinar as well. So once you identify the goal and develop a strategy around that goal, the next step is to identify the right tools to use to digitize core functions of your business, right? So today I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty with tactical tools to help you in the 5 strategic functional areas mentioned on the last slide. So digitizing sales with e-commerce. This is probably the most obvious one, if you will. This is a great time to create an online version of your business. It's not limited to product-based businesses also, but service-based businesses like, for example, digital marketing, consulting. You can do e-commerce as a solution for your own business. And there are several CMC members probably on the webinar today who are available to help in that area. Another area that we focus on is digitizing sales with Google Shopping, right? So if you're running a traditional office furniture store, you know, this might be a time to get on Google Shopping. Google Shopping had typically been only available to those that did Google Ads. They've recently opened the doors and they allow for free listings on Google Shopping. There are integrations that you can use with Shopify and other e-commerce platforms as well to get your listings on there. So this is a good opportunity to at least start a foray into you know, digital e-commerce on Google Shopping. Another example would be winter tires, right? This is something that you would pop over to the local store to get, but given the current conditions, people aren't making that decision anymore. They're making decisions to increasingly buy online. So, you know, being a tire center, this may be the time to make that leap onto Google Shopping and digitizing your sales efforts. Another thing that we're doing for a local jewelry store, this is one of the examples that we've kind of engaged recently, is to digitize sales with virtual appointments. So what we did is we drew out a workflow, a user experience journey for customers who would typically walk into a brick and mortar store, and we engaged the client to make sure that we set up a seamless transition from someone visiting their website, getting a calendar, seeing a calendar, clicking on the date. They get an email confirmation saying, hey, your appointment is good. The client, the jewelry store, also gets an email, and it gets put into their calendar as well. So they have their calendar, and then they can click that little Zoom link once the meeting starts. And then you can see on the right bottom screen there, we have myself playing the role of the client, the 2 business owners who are the ones that are showcasing the jewelry. And in the bottom left, we have an image of the jewelry set up so that we can you know, showcase the jewelry. It's not in the right position there, but you know, once it's all set up nicely, you can see the crystals are shining, the diamonds are shining off of it. So the lighting, it looks really fantastic. And we started this over the last couple of weeks, and they've been making sales from their regular customers. We're about to hit the switch for their Facebook ads and their Google ads and their Google Shopping. So, you know, this is basically taking an existing, the advertising side of it is taking an existing service that we offer, and now we're expanding it because we have the experience with integrating online cloud-based tools. You can also digitize marketing with virtual tours. So this is another client of ours called Brewdonkey, and they do locally in Ottawa, Canada, where I'm based. They do brewery tours. So they'll have a school bus pick up everyone, and it's a kind of fun adult field trips is kind of their slogan. So they'll take the group to 3 different breweries, and they'll get a tour, they'll get samples at each of them. And of course, given the current situation, they're completely not operational. So what they've done is they've actually started to do free virtual brewery tours. And so they're doing it through Instagram, as you can see here. And they've actually just made, because it was going so well, they've made a leap into using a conferencing platform. They're using Remo for this. And that platform allows them to actually, you can see tables on a map. And when you double click on a table, you're actually sitting at the table with 4 random people on video, and you're cracking your beer, and you're able to drink your beers together and cheers. And it's a good way to increase morale and you know, reduce social distancing. I've gone on it a few times, and it's really actually quite fun. So this is one way that you can evolve your business by digitizing marketing, because once things come back to normal, he's going to have a new client base that didn't know about him before through these virtual tours. Another thing, so this is not client facing, but digitizing your internal communications. So in our shop, we have Slack as a chat tool for internal communication. It's integrated with Asana, which is a project management tool. You can integrate both of those with G Suite and Office 365, which is, as most of us will know, an email and document product suite. Zoom, which we're using right now, is a video conferencing platform. Really, my opinion is that integration is key. We want to keep things as simple as possible for business owners. So integration is always the key. And for example, you know, if I'm having a conversation on Slack with a team member, I can just go /Zoom press enter, and then both of us are magically in a Zoom call together. No invites, no links, no long passwords, and all of the other stuff. It's really plug and play. And so if it's set up the right way, it can be quite seamless. You can digitize your financial systems. So the goal with digitizing finance systems is to securely and seamlessly go from converting a CRM order into an automated contract with digital signatures. We use WordPress e-signature. Generating an invoice automatically. So we have it integrated with QuickBooks Online, our CRM and the signature platform. We'll redirect from the contract to next steps page on website. So for example, the client signs their contract and then they get redirected to a page where they can give us access to their Facebook ad account, Facebook page, Google AdWords account, etc. Then we receive a payment via QuickBooks Online integration. So they'll get their invoice, they can pay by credit card. And then the final piece is automatically reconciling expenses with transactions pulled from online and banking. So, so these are all things that we would hire someone to do. And by automating it for our company, we've been able to be more nimble, passing those savings on to our client. Of course, human intervention is required at certain touch points, but overall it's automated. So, something like your financial system, which is secure, you'll want to monitor and babysit it for the first few months until you feel comfortable with it. But once everything is seamless, then you can hit the ground running. And then my job as the president is to review the P&L and balance sheet. So I can focus on, applying the insights and the recommendations rather than being the technician on the financial systems, right? And with a smaller company, I need to be that nimble. This is an example of the signature tool that we use, and you can see that it is considered legally binding, but I will say that with a caveat, which is please speak to a lawyer before using this. You waive CMC and CDIO of any liability here if you choose to use this. I just want to make that very clear. Please, if you do go down this journey, it can be very valuable, but also just be cautious and that you protect yourself in this regard. Every indication I've been given is that it's been secure for our business, but do your due diligence. You can see the timestamps at the bottom there about the audit trail, and it has worked very well for us and made it very, I don't have to scan contracts anymore or add my signature to a PDF anymore. So it's quite nice. This was a real interaction I had with a client when we consulted them on their finance system. So frustrated CFO before, since we are being forced to work from home and I don't have access to the checkbook, I will have to figure out how to pay online, right? So they kind of felt like stuck. We did a little project for them and helped them. Excited CFO after. I love automated payments. It is so much faster and costs us way less and takes up way less time. So this is the end conclusion, because not only is it going to make your life easier as a consultant or a business owner, it's going to make your team's life easier as well. Another platform or another functional area that you can digitize is learning, right? So this is an LMS or learning management system that we've used in the past called Talent, and integration is key here. It integrates with a lot of platforms that are readily available, such as WordPress, your website, YouTube, etc. So make sure that this is a great time to learn and to do training with your team. Our goal for last month was to do our Facebook Blueprint certification. One of our team members is a Santa Ambassador certified. And I'm taking an Excel course right now. So we're all learning. We're all making sure that we're taking advantage of this time. We're getting increasingly busy with digitizing your business projects, but still taking time to learn Excel more. Where to learn? So this is a great time to learn, as I mentioned. So my preference typically is to use the native platform official training if it is strong enough. So what I mean by that is if you use MSO 365, they have collateral that would be endorsed by them to use it. I mean, if it is strong enough. So you might do that and think, okay, well, this is easy. So you might move on to a third-party training course. But a lot of cloud-based tools like the ones that we've talked about today, they definitely invest heavily in their training because they know that adoption rate is going to increase if people understand how to use their tools effectively. Coursera.org curates university courses on any topic, and you can take classes at a minimal cost. So Duke, Yale, University of London, they're all offering online courses through this platform, Coursera.org. Some of you may have attended these courses, and you can attend them for free at no charge. However, and which is great. If you want to get the certificate, you would have to pay a nominal fee. I think it's $65 a month or something. So being able to get exposed to this level of education at such a nominal cost is excellent. And now's the time. I'm taking a negotiating class right now. So it should be, I'm finding it fun and valuable, and ways that we can apply it to your business. I spoke briefly about Asana, and the goal is really to digitize operations here. So for us, this is how our Asana is set up. It is a premium account. The really cool thing is, so this is a project management tool for those that don't know. So here you can outline all the tasks as showcased in the task column there, the assignee, which is the person responsible for it. We have the progress, so how far along that they're on it. I took the screenshot a little while ago, but I'm noticing a lot of zeros there, so I probably need to speak to the team on that, right? Yeah, so progress is a drop down, and you can select 0%, 15%, 25, 50%, 75%. Priority, whether it's a very high priority, urgent, or high, medium, low, very low. Review, so what this column is essentially, once they're done a project and they want their supervisor to look at that task, they kind of do a drop down and go, please review, and then reassign it to the person, whether that's me or one of the other managers. ETA is, of course, how much time we think it's going to take. So as the progress goes up, the ETA goes down. And so at a glance, I can say, okay, well, this person has this much bandwidth, and this is kind of what's on their plate right now. And then due date is due date, and notes allow for just a freehand note. So out of the box, Asana doesn't come set up like this, but what we've done is we've added custom fields. So the right configuration can really, take a simple tool and make it more advanced as long as everyone's on the same page. We have found this to be very effective, and it's an excellent platform for us. Now, I mentioned integrations are key. So one thing to recognize, if you're not super techie, or even if you are, there's a difference between native and hostile integrations. And what I mean by that is, a native integration is essentially Zoom contacting Slack, or Slack contacting Zoom, their biz dev teams, and partnering up to say, let's make this integration between our two platforms. And it's endorsed, they're sharing customer lists, they're onboarding each other's customers, they're doing maybe co-hosted webinars to really promote this integration. And the benefits are obvious in the sense that for Zoom, it's getting access to Slack's client base, and for Slack, it's getting access to Zoom's client base. And so there are many reasons why you would want to have a native integration. It just keeps it simple. Then there are hostile integrations. Now, don't let that word fool you, because hostile is not as aggressive as it sounds. But really what it means is, say Zoom and Slack had a conversation and they said, I don't think an integration is going to work for us. Or maybe one of them wants to have an integration and the other doesn't. So Zoom might then use their code or their API or a third-party platform like Zapier to create integrations that way. So, as an individual, you might say, go use a Zapier and saying, if this action happens in Slack, then do this in my Zoom account. So there are ways to go around native integrations. For example, Google and Facebook would likely never integrate with each other to the extent that would be optimal, right? I know you can post a YouTube video on Facebook and vice versa, and you can do stuff shared, but they would never really do a formal one in the sense that they're kind of in competition. So using Zapier or a third-party integration tool is definitely going to be beneficial in this regard. So this is a time where I like to talk about the giant ship engine that failed. So many of you will have heard this story. It's an old story, but I think it's the right time to share it. The ship's owners tried one expert after another, but none of them could figure out how to fix the engine. Then they brought in an experienced professional who had been fixing ships since he was a young boy. He carried a large bag of tools with him, and when he arrived, he immediately went to work. He inspected the engine very carefully, top to bottom. Two of the ship's owners were there watching this man, hoping he would know what to do. After looking things over, the professional reached into his bag and pulled out a small hammer. He gently tapped something. Instantly, the engine lurched into life. He carefully put his hammer away. The engine was fixed. A week later, the owners received a bill from the professional for $100,000. What? The owners exclaimed. He hardly did anything. So they wrote the old professional a note, the experienced professional a note, saying, please send us an itemized bill. The professional sent a bill that read, tapping with a hammer, $2, knowing where to tap, $999,998. $999,998. So the point I want to convey here is that the tools are important, but how you use them are more important. And that's where my team can help. Effort is important, but knowing where to make an effort makes all the difference in the world. So if you're looking to digitize your business, that's a very important factor to consider. And that's why it's important to use the right tools, but the right way. Here's another timely cliche quote: adversity is preparation for greatness. So, you know, it has been challenging for all of us. You know, there's no one that's immune to that. But how we respond to it and the things that we do over the coming days, weeks, and months are going to prepare us for success in the long term, for sure. So if you're in, so I appreciate you taking the time to watch, to hear me speak and attending the webinar. And the question I have for you is, are you ready to digitize your business? And if you are, please visit cd.io/digitize, where you can download these slides. And yeah, so it's sidi.io/digitize. And yeah, that is the presentation today. I really appreciate your time. Ultimately, self-awareness is the key, and using the right tools. So thank you for taking the time, and I'll pass it back over to Bernie.
Hi there, it's Bernie again. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much, Riaz. Now I would like to do some questions and answers from the audience. The orchestration for this, Sandra will tackle that. I think the approach is that just using the chat function, just type in your name, and then she'll open up your microphone and give you a chance to ask your question live, and then we'll respond. So Sandra, I'll pass it over to you with any other instructions, and then to launch in with the first question.
Okay. Just all you need to do is open the chat function and type your name into the chat function, and then we will unmute you for questions.
As we get that going, I'll start off with the first question maybe. And again, please type in your name into the thing, and that'll get our attention, and then we'll call you out. So question number one then comes from a member here is, Riaz, what size company is best suited for this type of activity? Small, large, what's the sweet spot that you're finding?
Mm-hmm. So the sweet spot that we're finding right now are companies that are like on the larger side of small to mid-sized companies. They typically are at a place where they don't have too many legacy systems. If you have legacy systems, it's going to take a longer time to transition to cloud-based integrated platforms. The transition is going to be well worth it for sure, but I just want to manage people's expectations that it's going to take a little bit more of an engagement, a longer period, and more training and ramping up to do. The examples that I gave today were smaller size businesses, and we were able to be nimble with them. We do service on the digital marketing side as well as digitizing your business side, you know, mostly enterprise, mid-sized to enterprise level clients. So there are opportunities across the board. You know, every business needs to think about how they're going to change to improve their business performance. So I don't think that it's necessarily limited to size. It's just how easy or difficult it's going to be to make that transition. But on the other side of it, every business is going to be better off with growing pains, of course, better off on the other side for the long term.
Okay, thank you, Riaz. We appear to have a bunch of shy people today. Actually, we have a question from Vladimir. Let me just get Vladimir unmuted. Where are you, Vlad?
Yes, I'm muted.
Yep, I hear you.
Perfect.
Hello, everyone. My best to all of you, and thanks. I'm at Minsk in Belarus now. However, it's absolutely unbelievable time. Every day we can get so much new information, how to stay and work at home. But for this reason, I would like to ask a question about the cybersecurity situation with digitization and other online and remote working.
Sure, perfect, Vladimir. So, sorry, what your question again?
The question is, how could you explain the cybersecurity reasons in this process of digitalization process?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So cybersecurity is always something that we are need to be mindful of and thoughtful of in these types of processes. Typically, in our experience, we have used platforms that are already secure, and so that. And then when it's more of a custom integration or a custom solution, we're bringing in a cybersecurity expert for that. I'm not gonna claim to be a cybersecurity expert by any means. We're more of the kind of general contractor to digitize the business. Many of the tools that we select, we have pre-vetted them to ensure that they are secure, because obviously in this day and age, cybersecurity needs to be of paramount importance for anyone doing any digital activities, for sure. So it's a good question. It's something to consider. And I know that there are many CMC members that you can leverage that would be best suited for that cybersecurity angle when digitizing a business.
Thank you, Riaz.
Thank you. I appreciate your
Thank you for attending.
We have a question now from Michael. Michael, I've unmuted you. I thought I had. Let me try again. Okay, Michael, you should be unmuted now. Okay, I will ask Michael's question. He said, which tool do you think most companies should be using but struggle to appreciate or understand why to use it?
So I think, so that's a really good question. And for me, I would say there's probably 2 or 3 tools that we've started to use, that some of which I've mentioned today. Slack, but depending on the size of your team. For me, I was a Slack kind of non-believer, I would say probably 2 years ago. And the way we have set up Slack is by client. So all of our employees that are engaged on a certain client project are within that Slack channel. And that really helps. That's actually reduced our email that we're sending and receiving in the hundreds. I would say I was receiving 200 emails a day prior to us integrating Slack. And now it's, I would say, it's only really client emails that we're receiving. And even with our clients, we're being added to their Slack channels, their Microsoft Teams as well. So these chat platforms, I would say, is the really low-hanging fruit, especially now that we're working remotely. And then, of course, Zoom, as we're using now, we all have seen the emergence of Zoom. We've been using Zoom for the last 4 or 5 years. And, some of the functions and features that Zoom has to offer, they're not, for whatever reason, by default, not enabled. So if you have a Zoom account or you're new to Zoom, I would go into your admin settings on the web-based, on your web browser and log into Zoom there. And you can activate things like some of the features we've used today, polls. There's a Q&A box that you can add. There's breakout rooms. So for example, if we had, we have a group of 35 of us right now. If we said we want to break out into groups of, 6 groups of 6 minus 1, we could do that and have more intimate conversations. So that's I would say, a really powerful tool. We've been using Zoom to record. I've been doing screen shares as training. So I'll do a screen share of how to do something. And explaining it to the team, and I'll just fire it off to them and say, hey, instead of me writing a 1-pager or 2-pager and getting it approved by 5 different people on the accuracy of it, let's just do a quick Zoom recording. I'll send it off. It's 3 minutes, and then the recipient can say, oh, this is great. This is how I can do this function within our business. So definitely Slack and Zoom are the communication tools that are important, because especially with the social distancing and the isolation right now, we all risk our teams becoming disengaged. And I think it's important to make sure that they're engaged and motivated and excited about their day-to-day work.
Thank you. Riaz, we have a question from Neil. He'd like to know, could you talk about typical licensing fees a small company would be looking at to automate their accounting e-commerce?
It's a good question. So, to automate, so like the tools I spoke about were like, it's a matter of being resourceful. For example, that contracting plugin that I showed you, it was a $400 one-time fee. So I never have to pay that again. QuickBooks, QuickBooks depends on, what features do you need, but that can range, I would say, $300 to $500 a month on the high end, right? Our payroll is all automated. That's a 200 so a month, right? So I mean, every situation is different. So I would encourage Neil, I'd encourage you to visit cd.io/digitize, and we can set up a call there where I can speak to you about how to digitize your finance systems in a resourceful way. One of our philosophies is to be resourceful. We've been remote for many years. We try and be resourceful to our clients so that we can pass any savings on to them. And that way we can, make sure that we're taking care of our team as well at the same time. But really, those, I would say it could be quite inexpensive, and legacy systems tend to be quite expensive because of the licensing factor on it. So what we're trying to do is be very resourceful, and we'll find the tools that fit within the right budget that will be quality, secure, and do exactly what you need for your finance systems.
Okay, thank you, Riaz. Bernie, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. One of the questions that I've had come across here is, how do clients overcome their hesitation of, now you're into the need for an IT support organization. I'm a 1 or 2 or 3 person operation. I've got my little spreadsheet and I'm running my little business. And now, in order to grow and scale, I need to move to the next step. How do I overcome this fear in my mind that I've got to set up an IT operation, and also how do I manage my my financial exposure and the risk of having to do stuff I'm not comfortable with yet?
Right. So I would never part of growth and growing pains is you have to feel uncomfortable before you feel comfortable. I think that applies to working out, trying a new thing, going on camera if you're not used to it. You're going to have to learn to exercise that muscle, that mental muscle of feeling comfortable doing something different. It's for some of the clients that we've done, the virtual tours or virtual appointments for, it's been a bit of a challenge, but as long as the processes and systems are in place to do that, they're starting to feel a lot more comfortable in that regard. In terms of financial exposure, I would say, well, I guess one other thing I would say on the first point is, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. If you're going to feel overwhelmed, like many of us will with new tools, think about the one goal that you want to tackle first and focus on that one goal, find that one tool, and then knowing that, when I look for new tools now, I make sure that it integrates with my core tech stack, if you will, right? So that's the important side of it. In terms of finance systems, in terms of financial exposure by pivoting to a different platform, I would say don't fully pivot until you feel comfortable. It's not something where you have to pull the Band-Aid off. There needs to be a transition period where you're using the old system, you're training people on the new system in intervals while you're still using the old system, and then slowly transitioning. So an example I might use would be, you're using 100% of your legacy system, then you start doing 10% of the work on the new system, 25% over time, and that ramps up over, I would say, depending on the type of complex structure that you have in place, anywhere from 60 to 90 days. Then at that 90-day point, everyone knows, okay, we're ripping the Band-Aid off, but at that point, they also feel comfortable with it. So I think that's going to limit the financial exposure, because what's not going to limit the financial exposure is buying a tool, force feeding it to your team, pulling the Band-Aid off, and now you're between a canyon, if you will, of a legacy system that everyone, whether they loved it or not, still felt comfortable on, and a new system that everyone loves, but they don't know how to use it, right? So it's important to transition and make sure that no one gets stuck in that canyon.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that goes to a concept of you can't have change if you never do anything different. And you've got to take a little bit of a risk every once in a while. And this is, I think, where the need for professional help comes in, is to help you get past that risk. I see also that Lucien here now has a question. So maybe Sandra, if you want to open him up.
I'm sorry, who has a question?
Lucien.
Lucien. Okay.
Yeah, my question is, with software as a service, how do we retain privacy of information?
Sorry, can you elaborate on the question, please?
Software as a service is online, which means I would be potentially exposing my information, and I would like to keep it private. How do I do that?
So, I mean, there's a variety of ways that you can do that. I mean, the first obvious one that comes to mind is a very strong VPN system that would allow you to, make sure that everything is encrypted properly. Also, making sure to use, SaaS tools that are certified and that have taken security seriously as well. I think part of that process is in the research phase of the strategy part of digitizing the business. It's important to assess all of the different factors, and there may be some limitations by being overly secure, and there may be some limitations by not being secure enough, right? So I think making sure that privacy and security is always of paramount importance, but we also want to make sure that it fits within the context of the execution that you want to do, as well as making sure to respect the privacy and security of your team, your employees, yourself at the same time. So I think it's really it's going to depend on the appetite of the business owner to a certain extent, and what an exposure might look like for them, right? So I'm not saying that you should risk an exposure. I think it's important to be very secure. So I would make sure to do due diligence on the different platforms that are available. And sometimes a SaaS-based, cloud-based tool might not be enough, or might not be secure or powerful enough for certain businesses. That's when they would engage, a cybersecurity or security integration developer and consultant.
Okay, Bernie, do you have any more questions?
Yep.
I have no more questions on my side.
Okay, that's great. I've got just a couple more questions here for the next few minutes. This goes to implementation again, Riaz. The question relates to how do you keep, like this is new for a number of companies implementing technology or whatever.
Sure.
So it's like the kid in the candy store problem where there's 23 different flavors, but there's only 2 you really need. How do you get to those 2? So the question relates to how do you keep the scope contained and make sure you get the maximum value for the effort that you put in without adding in needless complexity too soon? How would you approach that, and how do you find customers doing that?
Well, that's a good question. So for anyone that's used a tool or SaaS-based tool online, you'll see when you're making a purchase, if it's a freemium version, you'll see a grid with the different check marks. This is what you get in the free account. This is what you get in the pro account, the advanced account. I would make sure that all of the check boxes that you need there, that they're there, but you don't want to overcomplicate things at the same time. So I would dabble in a few freemium style tools until you get comfortable. So let's just say, for example, you're looking for a platform to do chat, for example. I'm just using that as an example, but chat. You might create a free Slack account, and then I would choose 3 to 5 other ones that may fit the needs of your business. Go use free versions of those and dabble, and then once you feel comfortable, then you can scale it up. So I wouldn't jump into anything. I mean, people, quote unquote experts may do a discovery call or needs assessment and come back with a list of solutions that might work for you. I would, at the end of the day, you and your team are the ones that have to use it, right? So I would make sure that you feel comfortable with even the idea of it. If aesthetic is important to you, then do that. If the functionality is important, if the substance is important. So make sure you clearly convey to the person that you're working with what's important to you. And if you're doing the research on your own, make sure you kind of make a list of pros and cons before you go out and actually search for that tool, that one single tool. Because if you really, it's like the internet, you can find anything that you're looking for. But if you make a list of the pros and cons that you want to make sure that the cons that you want to avoid and the pros that you want in your tool, you can go out and find those things by doing searches. Also, another thing that I consider when looking for a specific tool is understanding whether it integrates with the existing tools that I have. So, if you have one tool, you want to make sure that those 2 integrate with each other. And if they don't, if there's a way that you can, you want to avoid, duplicating keying entries in and that type of stuff. So I would say those are some of the factors that I would consider.
Okay, a question is, we've got an audience here as well of both consultants, some of which who are looking for providing these kind of capabilities or services to their clients to help guide them and lead them through this journey of taking advantage of these opportunities. And the other part is some of them are also looking for potentially automating their own businesses. So what guidance or coaching would you give to people? If you're looking at providing this as a service or consulting capabilities to your clients, what 1 or 2 things would you suggest to them? And then the second part of the question is, if somebody's looking at implementing something, where would be the best place to start from a functionality perspective?
So it's a good question. So The few things that I would definitely consider is when you're doing a discovery call, I mean, you'll want to do a discovery call with your client. Make sure that you're going very deep in terms of, asking the right questions, understanding what their current tech stack is, what their goals that they want to achieve, what the challenges are, the impact of that challenge, and what the benefits that they see coming out of a project like this. I think it's important to go very deep on that. And as part of the kind of plug that I had on the previous screen, we're offering a digital deep dive for yourself as a consultant or a business owner. I think it's important to do that deep dive with clients so that you can be aligned with the client in terms of what the outcomes are going to be. So this manages expectations across both yourself as the vendor and the client, or if you're the business owner yourself. And it also makes sure that there's no secrets or surprises. So being very transparent in this discovery phase, making sure that the scope of work is clear and the eventual inputs are clear, as well as the outcomes, because the last thing you want to do is do an abundance of work and then on the other side of it they're disappointed, right? So I think applying kind of the existing lens that you probably use in your existing consulting engagements and applying it to this type of project is also going to help as well, because you have a certain level of experience in that regard. So and you know how your business operates too. So and then I think Bernie, you were mentioning in terms of functionality. So can you just repeat that part, please?
Yeah, if you're a consultant and you're looking at automating and digitizing your own consulting business, what sort of functionality would be a good place to start, or what have you seen that people seem to want to do for their own businesses in the consulting world?
Right. So I would say certainly automating the onboarding process. So for example, when you sign up a new client, as I mentioned during the slides, they sign the contract, it's automatic. They get directed to a page and it gives them very clear instructions on how to actually give us access to the tools that we need. So you want to be careful about the balance between automation and human intervention, because you don't want to diminish the personalization that's involved. But for a service-based business, that would be one way in terms of your onboarding process. Also, another thing that you may want to automate, and what's worked well for us, is integrating, for example, bringing in a client into our Asana system. So as a guest, you can add someone as a guest. So bringing the client team into your Asana, assigning them to the project so that they're seeing all the tasks that are happening, which can then be converted into Asana has a plugin called Instagant, so like a Gantt chart. So what you can do is you can integrate Instagant in Asana, and then you have a nice Gantt chart that's a client can show to their executive team and show exactly what the milestones are. But then on the day-to-day basis, our team is basically able to check off the tasks in a more project management tool, method, right? So in terms of like the planning of delivery and deployment, Asana could be good. And keeping that client engaged in that part of it, it keeps them excited. They're excited in the beginning, and then that excitement wanes when they're wondering what's going on, right? And then you come back and we're like, it kind of avoids you having to be showcasing and kind of showboating, hey, we're doing this and we're doing that. And it's kind of more of a clear, transparent. You're still going to have to showboat to a certain extent, but it keeps it very clear and transparent about what the timelines are, who's doing what, when the deadlines are. And it also, that type of functionality, it doesn't only help with streamlining operations, but it also helps to avoid potential pitfalls. So, it keeps everyone accountable. And I think that's very important. I think in this day and age, especially where a lot of companies are using a flat management approach to their businesses and projects, it's important to keep everyone accountable. I'm not immune to it because I'm the president of my company. I still have accountabilities, and I'm still getting, harped on things if I haven't done my weekly webinar or my weekly video and what have you. So I think those are some of the factors on the functionality side of things that you can streamline. Great,
thank you. Well, let's wind down in the session, and let me just do a quick summary of what my key takeaways are on this session so far. I've learned that to me the key is identify your goals. What is it that you want to digitize? There's a lot of different options and there's different capabilities now, and the entry points for a lot of these tools now are so cheap that more companies that never thought they could automate stuff can. Second takeaway is, I think, do something to survive and then to thrive, but don't overdo it, don't overthink it, and use a phased approach so that you're starting off somewhere, get a success, and quickly move up from there. Don't try to boil the ocean right away. Third thing I would say is keep it simple. Somebody told me once, complexity kills. So the basic methodologies that consultants should be using anyway is identify the problem, hence the discovery approach, identify the flows and the integrations, doing a deep dive, implement your scope and have a plan, understand what you want to do, share that with the client, get them engaged, and then quickly move through it and do that in increments. And then finally, I think the key message here is get expert help. And something I learned from a couple other people too is know what you can do and when you need to have help. You know, you can probably figure out how to do it all yourself, but you're wasting a lot of your time that you should be doing building your business and get people in who know how to do the technology piece. So drawing that balance. So again, thank you very much, Riaz, for all the work that you've done so far and helping us on the seminar. So on behalf of the audience here and CMC, I'd like to say thank you very much for providing an entertaining and valuable interactive session for our folks. Hopefully everybody's learned something out of the exercise. And we'll have a number of other sessions going on over the next couple of weeks to provide some thought leadership, hopefully for the audience here in COVID. A lot of opportunities, and people should be seizing those. So that concludes today's webinar. And again, just as a final note, Riaz, you just want to give us another idea of who you are and how people can get a hold of you?
Sure. So I guess thank you so much to CMC for having me on the webinar. I appreciate that. I appreciate for those of you who stuck around, which was the vast majority, I appreciate that as well. This is my personal cell phone number. So in the interest of transparency, feel free to call me. And again, that is cd.io, SIDI.io is the website. And it's cd.io/digitize if you want to learn more. If you want to get the webinar slides that we shared today, or that I shared today, and also to schedule a digital deep dive with my team. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And that concludes today's webinar on 5 strategies to digitize your business during COVID-19 pandemic. And please join us for more actionable topics in our Disruptive Trends Leadership Series for consultants coming up over the next few weeks. Stay tuned to the C notes and other social media elements for that. So thank you very much to the audience and to our participants and to Sandra for helping keep us on track. That's it for today. Goodbye.
Thank you.